Hello students! Tonight we are introducing a new chapter, and it's one of my favorite chapters. It is the chapter on the nervous system. As we learned previously, the nervous system is an example of an organ system. In other words, it is made of several complex organs working together to accomplish a series of tasks. As we will see, the tasks for which the nervous system is responsible are some of the most essential for the organism's survival. These tasks can be boiled down to two categories. First, the nervous system is responsible for detecting, interpreting, and responding to stimuli. These three things, detecting, interpreting, and responding to stimuli, are three different actions that all require significant coordination. So, if I were to put this in other words, we would say that we can sense the world around us, we know how things look, how they feel, what sounds they make, etc. Then we make meaning out of those sights and sensations and sounds that we detect. And then we can decide what we want to do, and then we can make our bodies carry out those decisions. When you think about it, all of that coordination is quite astounding. But we can do it all thanks to our nervous system. Now, hopefully you noticed in this definition you have a vocabulary word from earlier in the year, and it's this word stimuli. So recall that a stimulus is any internal or external change that brings about a response. Some examples of stimuli include temperature, pressure, light, noise, odor, hormones, and of course many other things that aren't listed here under examples. By enabling the organism to detect these types of stimuli in the environment around it, the nervous system allows the organism to avoid danger, to find food, to interact with other organisms, and many other actions that are essential to the organism's survival. Okay, now in the most complex organisms, the most complex of which of course are humans, the nervous system actually serves a second very important function, which is it enables you to think, feel, and reason. So, for example, when you analyze a story, or solve a math problem, or debate an issue, or feel joy on a snow day, you are using your nervous system to its most advanced capacity. Okay, great. Now that we understand the functions of the nervous system, let's look at the organization of the nervous system. Our nervous system is divided into two parts. The first is the central nervous system, which contains the organs in the center of the body. That's why it's called the central nervous system. The organs included are the brain, which is our body's control center, and our spinal cord that has the job of relaying impulses between the brain and the nerves. It's kind of a go-between organ. On our person over here, the brain, here's the brain, and then the spinal cord is here. You can see the brain and the spinal cord are in the center, the symmetrical center of the body. The other part of the nervous system is called the peripheral nervous system. The term peripheral means to the side. You may want to add that in. You may have heard the term peripheral vision before. That means seeing out of your side view. Okay, so our peripheral nervous system, or our side nervous system, contains all of the parts of the nervous system that project to the sides of the body. So for example, your spinal nerves are part of your peripheral nervous system. So your spinal nerves are these things here, projecting off of the spinal cord and to the side. In this diagram, for some reason, they didn't fill in, they didn't fill in the nerves on both sides, but in reality, the nerves project from both sides of the spinal cord and throughout the body. Okay, so those are your spinal nerves. You also have another set of nerves which aren't clear in this diagram. Those are the cranial nerves, and those nerves actually project straight from the brain to the side. A lot of these nerves control, a lot of these nerves carry information to and from the face. Okay, but you can't see them in this diagram. I will show you some diagrams in class of what the cranial nerves look like. All right, now that we have a good idea about the organization of the nervous system and the organs that are contained within the nervous system, we should note that information in the nervous system flows in two main directions. First, information can be collected from the outside environment by sensory receptors, which then pass the information, sensory receptors. You would find these sensory receptors in the skin, as well as in your sensory organs like your eyes and your ears. So these sensory receptors will pass information from the body inward to the spinal cord, which will then pass the information up to the brain. These types of signals, which carry information from the outside of the body to the inside, are called sensory impulses. And if I were to diagram that on our diagram here, it would look like maybe you have a sensory receptor in your finger. That information is going to travel inward to the spinal cord. The spinal cord would take that information up to the brain, and then in the brain, that information would be processed and interpreted. So what you see in the red arrows, sensory information coming from the outside environment and being brought into the center towards the brain, that's sensory information. And the type of signal is called a sensory impulse. Okay, information can also move in the opposite direction. In other words, we can start in the brain with an idea. Maybe that idea is that we want to raise our hand. Okay, so that information starts in the brain. The signal would travel from the brain down the spinal cord and then through a nerve to get to either a muscle or an organ. In this case, if we want to raise our hand, the information would go to a muscle. When information flows in this direction, we call it a motor impulse. So again, if I were to draw on my diagram, this time the information starts in the brain. It's going to go down the spinal cord, and then it's going to go out of the spinal cord to a muscle in your hand, causing the muscle to contract so that your hand moves. These types of signals, which carry information from our control center out to other parts of the body, are what help us react to the world around us, to carry out whatever response is necessary for survival at that moment. All right, that is all for tonight. Short lecture. Tomorrow we will talk about neurons, the cells that make up all of the organs that we just talked about here in the nervous system, and we'll discuss how these neurons actually do the job of sending information throughout the body. I'll see you then.